Okay, we're live. Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we gather with the intent followed by the Living Peace and Friendship Treaties, with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. We are all treaty people. I call this public hearing to order. It is October 21st, 2025. The purpose of this hearing is to receive verbal and written submissions regarding amendments to section 5.12 coastal elevation of the town's land use bylaw. I will ask for the clerk to give a report.
At Council's July 31st, 2025 meeting, Council received a staff report concerning a language change to section 5.12 coastal elevation. The request was to change the language to exempt additions to existing structures from the current vertical setback requirement. At that meeting, Council passed the following motion. The Council directs staff to schedule a public information meeting and prepare draft land use bylaw amendments and related staff report. A public information meeting was held on August 26, 2025. No members of the public were in attendance. The Planning Advisory Committee received a staff report reviewing the request on September 9, 2025 and made a recommendation to Council. At Council's September 25th, 2025 meeting, they received the recommendation and passed the following motion. That Council give first reading to the land use bylaw amendment to change the language in section 5.12 coastal elevation to exclude additions to existing structures from the required vertical setbacks and direct staff to schedule a public hearing. The public hearing was set for today, October 21st, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. No public hearing submissions have been received. Notification was posted on the town's website, Facebook page, and on the town hall bulletin board.
Thank you, clerk. Is there anyone from the public here to make a submission?
Yes,
Okay, would you like to come and
yes.
state your name and address?
Okay, Helga Baxter's the 8 Long Hill Road. I was part of the planning advisory committee where this subject came up. And from what I understand, that there was a particular property in question who wanted a variance made to allow the building of the bathroom in the basement of this building. So what was required was a variance to allow them to do this because from what I understand, there are vertical setbacks that there's a bylaw for vertical setbacks that don't allow this type of work to happen. So when that came up for question, it was talked about and decided that perhaps the way to go is to allow making changes like that on existing properties, therefore change the bylaw to include that and just not allow that on new builds. So on new builds, the vertical setback bylaw would still exist. So my question is, you have, well, somebody at some point has decided that it's perilous to do this because of coastal erosion, high water levels in the ocean. But now we're saying that it's not perilous when it's something that already exists, but you're going to build an addition to it. So I'm not understanding why it's perilous in one situation, not perilous in the other. And if it is perilous, does that leave us open for some kind of litigious action by the public?
We don't respond at these meetings. This is a meeting for us to listen to the public. So, but that may be considered in discussion following this meeting. Are there any other members of the public?
There's no comment.
Okay, so we wait for
A couple of minutes.
it to, okay. 10 minutes?
It's 10.
Yeah.
Only 10 minutes.
Okay.
Let's back on that.
Okay. We have not had another submission, so, I will take a motion to adjourn the hearing. Councillor Twanzo, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. We will adjourn this meeting is adjourned. Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral presence and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we gather with the intent followed by the living peace and friendship treaties with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. We are all treaty people. I call this meeting of Town Council on October 21st, 2025 to order. I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Deputy Mayor makes the motion, second by,
I have a question about the timing. There's a motion now on the table, so that I was surprised that we went straight into council meeting. I didn't realize that was gonna happen. I must have missed a beat somewhere.
oh, did you want to wait?
Well, the meeting was
Yes,
advertised as immediately following. Now, I mean, we could have taken a minute. It didn't have to be like immediately. We could take a quick break. That's the discussion.
I second the motion.
You second the motion, Councillor Wilson seconds the motion. All those in favor signify aye.
The agenda, but I.
Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Okay, we will now ask the clerk for the report of the public hearing for the LUB amendment.
Public hearing was held this evening, on October 21st, 2025, to receive verbal and written submissions regarding amendments to section 5.12 of the Town of Humboldt Bay's land use bylaw. One member of the public was in attendance. One member of the public presented comments to the hearing. 0 written submissions were received prior to the hearing, and 0 written submissions were received at the hearing. The hearing adjourned at 6:44 p.m.
Okay, thank you, clerk. I will ask for a motion for a second reading of the amended bylaw. Councillor Tuano, second by Councillor Carver. This is your time for discussion. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wilson.
Just one thing, listening to Ms. Baxter's comments, I found it interesting that I don't know whether this is in the language or not, but I think it should say that an addition is acceptable to an existing building as long as it's at or above the level of habitation prior to. In other words, you can't take a house that's 6 feet above high water and extend it out and build another house 4 feet lower, just because it's an addition.
Okay.
I rather thought that this particular extension does meet that criteria. It's the same level, is it not, as the?
It wasn't in the basement. I think it's alongside the church.
Yeah, but I
But
guess.
nevertheless, it's the
Yeah.
same.
I think the issue is that like, this is just one example, but the way we're doing this is just for this one example.
Yeah.
So to that point, I guess the specific 5.12.3, which is the clause about where you're required to adhere to the preceding sections about not constructing anything. So it's the exceptions clause, I guess you could say. It says, you know, the types of things that you can do: reconstructed, renovated, repaired, moved, replaced. Now we've added the idea of the alterations and additions to that list. But all of that stuff can only be done provided that the work, well, at least according to the way it's written now, doesn't reduce the building's existing elevation. So in that sense, the addition potentially could be at a lower elevation than the rest of the structure. That's not a requirement, but there is a requirement that, you know, you're not doing renovations that overall reduce the existing elevation of the building. So partially covered, not entirely covered. And then the other point, I guess, that's worth mentioning is that in all cases, and 5.122 applies, you would actually still have to sign an indemnification agreement with the town stating that you acknowledge the risk of constructing below 3.5 meters. So there is that as well, just to the liability point.
Councillor Wilson?
Well, I guess, I guess the question is, are we okay with that? I mean, my cards have to be on the table. I was against this bylaw in the first place because I think it's too high, but that's beside the point. I would be happier to see language that said that no addition to a structure shall be below the current level of habitation. Than to say, you know, what it says, which is that you can build whatever you like.
And the thing that you just sent around, Kelly, didn't include the actual text of the amendment. I just want to double check it.
I just, Councillor Carver? Just wanted to check with Councillor Wilson's suggestion of the word habitation. In this case, it's a church, so it's not a habitation. Would it be use, current use? Is it?
Well, I think the original, excuse me, Your Worship,
Yes, councillor.
I think the original language talks about the level of, the level of, now maybe habitation is the wrong word, the living level, the living premises must not be below 10.5 or 3, whatever it is, 3.5 meters. And, but you can have a basement, for example, as long as you're not living in it. But as I understand it, so all I'm saying is that if it's an extension, it shouldn't be below whatever level the existing building is.
Yeah, so you're right about the habitable area point. The clause that is being exempted from in the case of additions does use the phrase, the finished floor level of any habitable area located below 3.5. I don't know how habitable area is defined with respect to zoning. I don't think that habitable area is residential specific. So essentially you'd have to, the suggested wording would have to be added to the exemption clause, the new exemption clause, because actually now that I see the wording, there is a new exemption. I found the wording. There's a new exemption clause, so it's not just adding it to the list. This is what we talked about at PAC. We could just be adding it to the list of 5.12.3, and the wording is tricky. And Emily took it away. What she actually proposed was just to make it simple, a new exemption clause specific to this, just saying additions to existing non-residential institutional buildings shall be exempt from 5.12.1. So that's actually quite a bit more specific.
Yeah.
Non-residential institutional buildings may have additions that are at below 3.5. It's actually quite a bit more specific than the.
Councillor Faulkner?
In this particular case, though, is it at the same level or below? In this particular application,
I think it's at the same level.
that's what I thought, yeah.
So what we're talking about now is that additions to existing non-residential institutional buildings can be below 3.5 and below the level of the existing floor level, according to the proposal.
Okay.
The only unfortunate thing about adding a small fix, if the council were so inclined, is that technically we have to go back through the hearing process again. So what you might need to do is, if you're comfortable with the specific proposal, make it and then add yet an additional fix to the housekeeping list that's coming up to PAC in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. And Councillor
I just want to be sure that we have addressed the question from the gallery about the perilousness of what was trying to be addressed in the original bylaw. And if this has changed, does this mean that we're approving a situation that might be perilous?
Yeah, so in the original bylaw, the section being exempted 5.12.1 is not the section that is associated with indemnity. The following section in the land use bylaw is the one that says that you have to acknowledge the risks and sign an indemnification agreement with the town. So these additions are not exempted from that clause. That clause still applies. Now, that clause, interestingly, is not about 3.5 meters specifically. It's about any development within the flood risk area, period, whether it is below or above 3.5 meters. So, it's a little bit stricter in that sense. So the indemnification agreement thing was supposed to be about the point that was raised. Now, ultimately, will it work? And we'll not know until we get sued, to be honest. But, you know, it's a practice we've been using.
Okay, any other discussion? Questions? I will call for the question, or
Second reading.
second reading, sorry. We need,
We don't have a motion yet.
no, sorry.
I thought we did.
I think we do have.
I thought, we do have motion on the floor, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, oh, people were shaking their head no, so I was like, okay. All those in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Okay, thank you.
And I'll talk to Emily about that as a possible.
Okay, that's good. All right, moving on to closed session, item 3. I will take a motion for closed session 3.1 MGA 22(2)E contract negotiations. Is there a mover? Councillor Carver, second by Councillor Twana. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. We are now going into closed session.
So we're all set.